Some of the most incredible natural events in the world only happen once in a lifetime, and that's if you're lucky. Shocking events like the ones I'll be showing you today, endless winter, purple lightning, and the creation of all living things. Let's jump right in.
Purple lightning and superbolts.
In 2017, one of the rarest lightning strikes ever was captured on video. It looked like Thor had just brought the lightning down from Asgard. The phenomenon is exactly what it sounds like, a bolt of extremely vivid purple electricity spiraling down from the heavens. It's so rare that purple lightning is almost never caught on film. The footage captured in 2017 by Jeff Miles was a fluke of biblical proportions. He managed to snap a picture of the purple streak near the small Australian town of Pilbara.
But what is purple lightning and how does it form? It's known more scientifically as ionospheric lightning. It only happens when lightning forms at a much higher altitude than a normal storm. As you can see in the picture, the purple lightning strike formed above the clouds, making it look as though it came from space instead of a storm surge. Niagara Falls. In 1969, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers turned off Niagara Falls. If you weren't alive to see it, then you missed your opportunity. It was a once-in-a-lifetime chance to see the most famous waterfall in America completely dry. But how did they do it? It's not like the Army could just turn a valve and shut off 76,000 gallons of rushing water. No, they had to build a dam between the American bank of the river and Goat Island. This momentarily plugged the Niagara River. They did it because engineers wanted to remove boulders that had been piling up at the base of the falls, making it look less epic. Around 100,000 people showed up to see Niagara Falls bone dry. The 11-story drop from the top of the falls to the bottom was nothing but a boring rocky cliff. Niagara Falls has had a special place in American culture since anyone can remember. It also held an important place in Native American culture. The name Niagara comes from the Iroquois word Ongiara. They were the original settlers of the area. French explorer Samuel de Champlain was the first to describe the falls in 1604. 200 years later, Charles Dickens wrote that visiting the falls made him feel like he was standing near the Creator. Nikola Tesla designed one of the first hydroelectric plants ever near the falls. He believed it was a peak moment in human civilization. His exact quote was, "It signifies the subjugation of natural forces to the service of man." It's no wonder so many people showed up when the Army plugged the river and the falls ran dry. The death flower blooms. There is a flower so rare and so exotic that for years nobody was able to grow it outside its natural habitat in the Southeast Asian jungle. It's called the death flower, and it's the largest, stinkiest flower most people have never even seen before. The death flower, known scientifically as the Rafflesia, starts its life as a tiny seed no bigger than a grain of sawdust. Nobody knows how long it takes for the seed to become a flower. It might take months, or maybe it takes years. At some point, a parasitic bud emerges, and then it grows into a bulge about the size of a cabbage. If the conditions are just right, the flower will reach its final stage. It's like an evolving Pokemon, starting tiny and exploding into the biggest carnivorous flower known to humanity. This thing is a monster, both literally and figuratively. It's covered in polka dots that has the same hue as human blood. It also emits a stench that mimics the smell of rotting animal flesh. There are a few different species of the flower. The biggest and rarest is Rafflesia arnoldi. It can weigh as much as 20 pounds. It's a botanical behemoth that uses its fleshy stench to attract carrion flies, which it then devours. Jean-Maire Molina says studying Rafflesia is a major challenge. The flower is rare, and its complicated life cycle and biology are a mystery. Scientists have never been able to raise one of these flowers outside its natural environment. Only Sophie Morsi Dawati from the Bogor Botanical Gardens in Java has been able to grow specimens in her garden, but she only did it by transplanting them from the wild. She's never been able to get the flowers to bloom and spawn. The flower is so rare that not even the brightest scientists can figure out how to grow it. The year with no summer. 1816 was a year unlike any other in the newly made borders of Canada. In 1815, things were looking up. Canada had just stopped the American invasion in the War of 1812. The country had nearly 500,000 people living in it. This was the first year Canadians really started to feel like their own people and not servants of the British Crown. Then 1816 came, and it was a nightmare. This was not a once-in-a-lifetime natural event. It was a once-in-2,000 lifetimes natural event. On April 5, 1815, the largest eruption since before the Roman Empire rocked the planet. Mount Tambora in Indonesia erupted without warning and without mercy. Then it erupted again 5 days later. 12,000 people near the volcano died. Some were crushed under falling rocks. Some were boiled alive by the heat. Others were suffocated by the toxic gas that spewed out of the volcano and blowed across the ground. In the next few months, 80,000 more people died from the catastrophic fallout. In Canada, it was the year with no summer. Meteorologist Nicholas P. Klingemann estimated the volcano released about 100 million tons of sulfuric acid. All that acid plus ash particles rose into the stratosphere. Over the next year, they spread around the world. Temperatures were cooled and the energy from the sun was prevented from reaching Earth. It wasn't until next April that the event reached Canada. In April, it began to snow in Quebec City. It should have been spring, but people were shocked to see that instead of warming, it suddenly got colder. Then it didn't stop snowing. In June, the temperature at noon was below the freezing mark. People panicked because it seemed like the world was ending. Crops didn't grow, it kept snowing into July, and people died from widespread famine. Things did get better eventually. There has yet to be another year without summer in Canada. The Venus Transit. Some events are so rare they don't even happen once in a lifetime, like the transit of Venus, which last occurred on June 5, 2012. It isn't scheduled to be seen again until 2117. Unless you were born a few hours ago and lived to have a very healthy life, you are most likely never going to see this amazing cosmic wonder. Venus is the second rock from the Sun. It was seen only for a few fleeting moments in 2012 as it moved casually across the Sun. This only happens when Venus passes directly between Earth and our mother star. While looking at the Sun, you can see a tiny black dot like a smudge in your vision moving across its surface. Weirdly, it happens twice in only 8 years. Then it doesn't happen again for 105 years. It's also only observable from whichever side of the planet happens to be in the day phase. If you're in the night part of the world when Venus passes the Sun, you've missed your chance. In 2012, only people who lived in New Zealand, Australia, and the northwesternmost points in North America saw the show. They were able to catch a glimpse of Venus as it waved hello on its orbital journey. If you were one of those lucky people, be sure to tell us what the experience was like in the comments. India's red rain. From late July until late September 2001, downpours of bloody rain fell across the Indian state of Kerala. Clothes were stained pink as the skies unleashed endless torrents of red rain. Some places reported black rain, others yellow or green rain. It was a bizarre event that seems to happen about once in a lifetime. Colored rain fell from the sky in Kerala in 1896. There were a few scattered reports that it happened again in 2012. Red rain fell for long enough that there is no disputing what happened. The rains fell for 2 months, giving scientists plenty of time to investigate. Godfrey Lewis was a physicist who collected samples of the red rain himself. He assumed the phenomenon was because of sand or dust. He thought contaminants had made it into the atmosphere and were falling in the rain. But he was wrong. When Godfrey looked under a microscope, he found no sand or dust. The red rainwater was filled with dark red cells that looked strangely like bugs. Godfrey searched for evidence of DNA, but found none. He had no idea what caused the red rain because none of the tests showed anything definitive. When he published the results of his study for peer review, he made a loose suggestion that the cells in the rain may have come from space. The thought was that perhaps a comet had disintegrated in the upper atmosphere, seeding clouds with cells from the depths of space. Then, when it rained, the tiny fragments of the comet came down in the water droplets. This is the best current theory, but it hasn't been confirmed beyond a reasonable doubt. It's likely the most interesting thing you're going to hear all week because of what I'm about to tell you next. This exact event, red rain fueled by tiny cells from an exploding comet, could be where human life came from. It's part of something called panspermia theory. The idea, put forward by physicist Fred Hoyle, is that biological life arrived on Earth on comets. Millions and millions of years ago, this exact same thing happened. A comet exploded, cells rained onto the surface, and eventually those cells became single-celled organisms. From these single-celled organisms originated all the life on this planet. If panspermia theory is true, it raises so many painfully unanswerable questions, like why are there comets with life-giving cells roaming around the universe? The Carrington Event. This next one involved a super solar storm that, if it happened today, would destroy human society. It was September 1st, 1859. Amateur astronomer Richard Carrington went into his private observatory on his estate just outside the city of London. He pointed his telescope at the sun and was disturbed to see unusual dark spots on its surface. The sun looked like a bruised orange. Then, from these bruises, Carrington witnessed bright white light erupting. 5 minutes later, the explosion of light disappeared. A few hours later, the impact of those white lights was felt across the globe. All over the planet, night skies erupted in colorful auroras. It was so bright that it looked as though the sun was coming up, even though it was the middle of the night. Telegraph communications failed, telegraph machines exploded in showers of sparks, and operators were shocked, literally, and things were set ablaze. It wasn't a very big disaster because this was the 1800s. There was no vast communication system, only a simplistic telegraph system. Nonetheless, it was pretty disruptive. Telegraph lines across North America were rendered useless. Although the lines had only been established for a short time, people were already getting used to easily transmitting news and messages. Suddenly, they couldn't do that anymore. Streams of fire poured out of circuits and platinum contacts melted. When the solar storm settled, things got back to normal, but for 2 days, it was utter chaos. If that were to happen today, it would be devastating. Phones would go out, power lines could explode, your laptop might burst open in your face. Nobody really knows what would happen, but it would definitely be bad. Experts have guessed the event of 1859 was from a solar explosion equal to the power of about 10 billion atomic bombs. It was likely the largest on record that ever hit the planet. Fire rainbows. It's a bird. It's a plane. Nope, it's a fire rainbow. One of the rarest things you might glimpse in the sky one day, aside from an alien spaceship, is a flaming rainbow. These are real things that are only occasionally photographed. A fire rainbow looks exactly like a string of rainbow-colored fire streaking across the blue sky. It's technically a cloud that takes on the traits of a rainbow, but the way it interacts with the light makes it look as though it's burning technicolors. The proper scientific term is circumhorizontal arc. They only occur when the sun is more than 58 degrees in the sky. The phenomenon is also dependent on weather conditions. You're far more likely to see a fire rainbow in the sky above Los Angeles, where it's frequently clear, than in London, where it's cloudy. But how do they even form? The main ingredient is cirrus clouds. These are unique clouds that are stringy, thin, and wispy. Cirrus clouds have a somewhat ephemeral quality to them. These clouds move softly across the sky as fleeting veils, unlike cumulus clouds that are dense and fluffy and sometimes look like dragons. Cirrus clouds are also much higher in the atmosphere. where the temperature is significantly colder. The clouds are made from ice crystals in the atmosphere. When the sun hits the right angle of 58 degrees, the light refracts through the ice crystals that make up the clouds. This has a prism effect that creates rainbows. The term fire rainbow is kind of a trick. The phenomenon is very rare, but it doesn't always look like fire. Sometimes entire sheets of wispy clouds glow rainbow colors. It's exceedingly rare to see one that resembles real fire. To be fair though, good luck seeing one in any form. Most people go their whole lives without ever witnessing a fire rainbow.
Thanks for watching! Be sure to stay tuned for extra content you might have missed.
Water spouts. Water spouts are essentially spinning columns of mist and air that form over open water. There are two different types of water spouts called fair weather water spouts and tornadic water spouts. According to the National Ocean Service, these result from tornadoes that form over the water, or those which move from land to water, but they're all equally dangerous. They share similar characteristics to tornadoes that occur over land, including their association with severe thunderstorms, high winds and seas, large hail, and frequent lightning. Fair weather water spouts usually form along the dark flat base of a line of developing cumulus clouds. They are not usually connected with thunderstorms, and unlike tornadic water spouts, which develop downward, fair weather water spouts develop upward, starting at the water's surface, and are near maturity by the time their funnels become visible. Fair weather water spouts typically move very little because they tend to form amid light wind conditions. The first recorded account of a water spout is from 1869, when a 19-year-old sailor reported what had happened after the ship he was on was suddenly surrounded by an eerie silence, and then suddenly they were hit by a downpour of wind and water. The ship was destroyed and he was one of 3 survivors. Water spouts in general can cause serious damage. Because of this, if one moves on shore, the National Weather Service issues a tornado warning. Usually, however, water spouts dissipate upon landfall. In 2018, a magnificent and slightly terrifying water spout was captured on camera in Russia over the Black Sea. While these formations are pretty rare, fishermen in the country's Krasnodar region reported having seen another water spout the previous week, the Godzilla Cloud. This past June, trade winds blew a gigantic cloud of dust from the biggest Sahara dust storm in over 50 years across the Atlantic Ocean, first hitting the Caribbean and then sweeping into mainland North and Central America, particularly the southeastern United States, before taking a northwestern turn. I mean, it is 2020. What else do you think is going to happen? Leave your guesses in the comments below. It measured roughly 3,500 miles long, about 200 miles longer than the distance between Seattle and Miami, according to journalist Bruce Y. Lee, writing for Forbes. Although the cloud was officially named the Saharan Air Layer, it became much better known by its nickname, the Godzilla Cloud. In some places like Havana, Cuba, and San Juan, Puerto Rico, the dust blanketed the sky, vastly reducing visibility. But the oncoming Godzilla cloud made for a spectacular sunset in other places like Miami, although the view still came with a noticeable haze. The barreling accumulation of sand particles also raised widespread concerns regarding air quality and potential respiratory effects, especially in light of the ongoing global coronavirus pandemic, which already wreaked plenty of havoc on public health. According to Dr. K. Max Zhang of Cornell University, who spoke with the New York Post, the harmfulness of dust particles depends on numerous factors, including their size, concentration, and composition. And, he added, around 30% of the dust was very fine, posing hazardous health risks. We just breathe it right in. Additionally, on its way across the ocean, the cloud undoubtedly picked up numerous pollutants. So, how do people stay safe in a situation like this, especially if they are already at a heightened risk of respiratory problems? The same thing we've all been doing for however many months now: wear a mask and hope for the best. Cicadas. As if the COVID-19 crisis and the Godzilla cloud weren't enough to deal with in 1 year, 2020 also came with the emergence of millions of 17-year cicadas from underground in several states during the month of June, including West Virginia, Virginia, and North Carolina. The rarely seen or heard insects appear for their mating season, which only occurs every 17 years, as you probably could have guessed based on their nickname. They arrive above ground en masse, and predators do not know they are coming. In some areas, the concentration of cicadas reached as many as 1.5 million per acre. But the sight of these insects wasn't the most overwhelming aspect of their emergence. It's their cricket-like chirping, which is extremely loud. Some regions experienced less dense populations of cicadas, however, and therefore more tolerable noise levels. Communities and farms with large numbers of cicadas emerging at once may have a substantial noise issue, entomologist Eric Day told Virginia Tech Daily. During their brief time above ground, 17-year cicadas feed on various trees, especially fruit trees, and in commercial orchards where they tend to cause the most damage to plant life. However, generally speaking, these insects are not nearly as harmful as one would think, given the quantity in which they appear. While the 17-year cicadas come and go fairly quickly, their disappearance back underground doesn't necessarily mean the noise is over. There are annual cicada species who appear more regularly and a little later in the summer than their more intermittent counterparts. Fireball cloud. In early 2016, residents on the Portuguese island of Madeira noticed a golden-hued cloud descending from the sky and hovering over them. Photographer and weather blogger Rogerio Pacheco, who captured images of the strange cloud and posted them on his website, described the phenomenon as a fireball. While the cloud is indeed fascinating, it can be explained by simple science and is the result of extraordinary things happening to ordinary clouds, according to Science Alert, as well as Pacheco's impeccable timing for capturing the snapshots. The cloud's fiery red and gold hues are caused by the sunrise hitting them at the right time, and its dark patches near the top, along with its lighter undertones beneath, result from two clouds at varying altitudes coming together. Different colored clouds mix between high and low altitudes all the time, but because they're usually shades of gray, our eyes can't often distinguish them, wrote Science Alert reporter Fiona McDonald. It's only when sunlight hits them like this that their hues become so pronounced. The top cloud is an altostratus cloud, forming between altitudes of 2,400 to 6,100 meters. The bottom cloud is a cumulus cloud, sitting at around 1,000 meters. Their combined effect, along with the vivid coloration lent to them by the sunlight, likely only lasted a few minutes, making Pacheco a lucky photographer for the opportunity to capture the phenomenon on film. Firenado. A firenado, also commonly called a fire whirl or a fire devil, is what it sounds like, a whirlwind composed of flame and ash. In August 2018, a firenado tore through parts of Derbyshire, England, reaching a height of more than 50 feet and ripping through a plastics factory. Firefighters captured the catastrophe on film as it tore through the property, spreading to another building and even lighting some forklifts ablaze. The firefighters spent a considerable amount of time tackling the fire whirl as it burned through plastic pallets that are used for making supermarket crates. It created a huge black cloud of smoke that could be seen for miles around, but as destructive as the firenado appeared, thankfully no injuries were reported. While we were firefighting at Occupational Lane, we witnessed a firenado or fire whirl, Leicester Fire and Rescue Service wrote on Facebook, along with video of the destructive phenomenon. It's created as cool air enters the top of the hot air, causing a swirl similar to how a tornado is formed. The multi-agency effort to battle the blaze went on for hours, with firefighters working diligently to prevent the flames from spreading to any residences and to get the fire under control. Shelf clouds. When a giant shelf cloud rolled in over Lake Superior in mid-2018, it bore an eerie resemblance to a tsunami. Footage captured from Altrain, Michigan, shows the formation barreling toward land at a terrifying speed. It's a sight sure to send most people running. But a shelf cloud is what it sounds like, a cloud which sucks up water from the lake or whatever water body it's moving above, growing larger and larger as it advances toward land. Holly Belangi-Meringer, the Outrain resident who filmed the shocking phenomenon and posted the footage and images on social media, explained that as the cloud headed toward the shore, the tide pulled back, much like it would before a real tsunami. She also reported that the cloud caused the previous 85-degree Fahrenheit temperature to suddenly drop by about 20 degrees. "So we just experienced the craziest thing ever," Meringer wrote on Facebook. "In the distance, it looked like a huge wave heading towards us, so we decided to watch it come in." In a situation where most people would run for cover, I'd say she's a pretty brave woman. "We didn't get any rain, but the wind was so strong when it hit shore you could hardly breathe," she said, adding that she was almost knocked over by the powerful gusts of wind. "I'm happy to report it's a very comfortable 65 degrees out now." The entire event, from beginning to end, lasted just 10 minutes. Orange snow. The Russian city of Sochi was perhaps best known for hosting the 2014 Winter Olympics, until, just 4 years later, its snow turned orange, and Sochi once again made international headlines, albeit unexpectedly this time. You've probably heard of yellow snow, and if you have, then I'm sure you know what causes it. Orange snow is a different story, thankfully. Besides hosting the Olympic Games in the past, Sochi became known for its dusty, red, Mars-like surrounding mountain range in 2018, when winds blew sand particles from the Sahara Desert in North Africa all the way to Eastern Europe. On its way over, the dust mixed with storm and rain, UK meteorologist Stephen Keats told The Independent, adding that this resulted in the snow's transformed hue. The sandstorm extended from North Africa all the way to Greece before heading toward Eastern Europe, and its progression was captured on NASA's satellite imagery. Besides happening in Russia, the phenomenon was witnessed in various other countries, including Bulgaria, Romania, and Ukraine. Had the Sahara Desert sandstorm blown westward instead of east, it may have just resulted in a Godzilla cloud like I told you about earlier. Light pillars. Sun pillars, also called light pillars, are vertical light shafts extending from above and or below the surface of a bright light source. Have you ever looked out at the sky, perhaps a city skyline at night or the setting sun, and noticed that the lights seem to spread up or down? That's what this phenomenon is. Light pillars are caused by ice crystals that are drifting and suspended in the atmosphere. They're often visible from the sun or other bright lights sitting low on the horizon. Their height ranges between 5 and 10 degrees, and sometimes they're even taller than that. As you stare at them, they may change in brightness or size. Besides being lovely in their own right, light pillars are thought to be the source of some mistaken UFO sightings. All they are in reality are optical illusions. Beautiful, but nothing too out of the ordinary. Colder than Mars. In early 2018, in Russia's extreme northern region of Yakutia, Siberia, the town of Oymyakon hit a shockingly low temperature of 88 degrees Fahrenheit below zero, cold enough to freeze someone's eyelashes, and colder than the planet Mars, which sits at around minus 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Oymyakon is already well known as the world's northernmost inhabited town, with temperatures regularly sinking to minus 58 degrees Fahrenheit on average during the winter. No thanks. But believe it or not, even when the region dropped to minus 88 degrees 2 years ago, this wasn't their record low. At their worst, temperatures have dipped to minus 90 degrees Fahrenheit. While even trying to imagine how cold this must feel probably sends chills up your spine, the Yakutians take the extreme cold in stride, using unusually low temps as an opportunity to post selfies of their frosted eyelashes and discuss the way below freezing weather on social media. The below 80 weather didn't even stop life from continuing as usual, since, after all, businesses and homes are equipped with modern conveniences like heat and emergency generators. Sorry kids, but a snow day in Siberia is wishful thinking. Roll clouds. Light pillars aren't the only bizarre weather phenomenon that have been mistaken for UFOs. Roll clouds also claim those bragging rights, although they're simply a rare form of Arcus cloud. These strange-looking formations are low-lying, horizontal, and tube-shaped, forming what WMC5 Action News referred to in 2018 as a rolling, solitary wave. In June that same year, a distinctive, impossible-to-ignore roll cloud formed over Memphis, Tennessee, sparking a widespread interest in what these bizarre, ominous sights actually were. As it turns out, roll clouds are not the least bit dangerous, despite their imposing presence in the sky. Action News broke it down for their audience following the sightings, explaining that there are two types of Arcus clouds, shelf clouds and roll clouds. While shelf clouds tend to form along the leading edge of a large storm, called a supercell thunderstorm, roll clouds sometimes form in advance of shelf clouds among an atmospheric horizontal vortex. The roll cloud then sometimes detaches from the shelf cloud as the storm dissipates, but continues moving, taking on a rolling motion as it advances horizontally in any given direction. Roll clouds are most common along coastal regions where there's a sea breeze or a cold front. Devil's Kettle. On the easternmost tip of Minnesota, not far from Lake Superior and the U.S.-Canadian border, the Brule River drops 800 feet in an 8-mile span. At one point, the river splits into two. One side flows down into a normal, respectable waterfall. The other disappears into a hole in the ground, and no one knows what happens after that. People call this area Devil's Kettle Falls. The giant hole drinks down massive amounts of water, all of which goes to an unknown place, baffling hikers and scientists for decades. The water has to come out somewhere, and most agree it eventually empties into Lake Superior. However, there are no underground rivers because of the type of rock. Dyes and ping pong balls have been dropped into the water to try to trace the water's path, but none of these dyes and balls have ever been seen again. Riverbed potholes, also called kettles, are common. However, they're normally surface erosions, not entire channels. Possible explanations for this strange geological feature include a fault line, an underground cave, and a lava tube. To support the sheer amount of water pouring in every day, there would need to be a deep and large underground cave or channel. However, these form rarely and only in limestone, which is a soft stone that dissolves easily in water. In this area of Minnesota, the ground is basalt and rhyolite, which do not support underground rivers. It cannot be a lava tube because rhyolite does not form lava tubes. An open fault line would eventually be clogged with sediment, as would a lava tube for that matter. Besides, there is no evidence of a fault line. So where is the water going? How is it getting there? One legend states someone pushed a car into the fissure to discover the truth. Some people have tried GPS and cameras, but those are rendered useless once they're underground. The nature of the chasm also prevents would-be spelunkers and divers from probing the mysterious depths. For the time being, Devil's Kettle Falls remains a complete mystery. Permafrost explosions. In both the Arctic and Antarctic circles, there are different kinds of ice layers. There's the standard ice that we're all familiar with, but underneath that is a layer of soil that stays frozen year-round called permafrost, and it's very difficult to work around. For example, when gold miners in the Yukon or Alaska hit a layer of permafrost, thawing it out is an expensive, time-consuming, and specialized process. But we gotta get to that gold. Permafrost may seem like an inconvenient but safe thing to be near, and it usually is, but that's not always the case because under certain conditions, permafrost can explode. Not only is the explosion itself dangerous, but it also leaves behind a giant, hazardous crater. These explosions are particularly common in Siberia, a vast and largely unexplored region of northern Russia. Because Siberia is so remote, experts admit that it's hard to determine exactly how often the explosions occur, but they're believed to happen pretty frequently. When permafrost melts, it releases flammable gases, including methane, from decomposing organic material such as vegetation and animal carcasses. Scientists believe the sudden release of these gases may be the culprit behind the explosions. As terrifying as permafrost explosions are, there's a bigger underlying problem looming on the horizon. As global warming continues on an upward trajectory, researchers are becoming increasingly concerned that Siberia's permafrost is in danger of melting completely. Darvaza gas crater. Nicknamed the Door to Hell, the Darvaza gas crater was formed in 1971 in what is now Turkmenistan. At the time, the area was under Soviet leadership, who scanned the land for resources. A pocket of methane gas was discovered, so the government set up a drilling station to harvest it. However, officials underestimated the size and scope of the methane pocket, and a pit began to form. The entire drilling station was forced into the hole that is now there. Thankfully, no lives were taken. Knowing how dangerous methane gas is and not wanting to release large volumes of it into the air, geologists working at the site lit the highly flammable methane, hoping it would eventually burn out. Their second underestimation was that the fire would deplete the methane in a reasonable amount of time. However, the pit contains such large reserves of gas that it continued to burn long after it was set ablaze. In fact, it's still burning today, over half a century later. The burning pit is currently 230 feet wide and resembles a gate to the underworld, hence the nickname, the Door to Hell. Lenticular clouds. Clouds are very diverse, and lenticular clouds are one of the most peculiar types of cloud. Lenticular clouds are stationary lens-shaped clouds that form among the high altitudes of the troposphere. Their shape and size often dwarfs those of other clouds, giving them a perfectly sculpted, deliberate look. The clouds typically form on the downwind side of a mountain or a mountain range when stable, moist air flows over a mountain and creates a series of oscillating waves. Cool, huh? Sometimes lenticular clouds are created in such a way that they stack on other clouds, creating a beautiful and awe-inspiring design that makes the viewer wonder how it was made so perfectly. The shapes of the clouds are so strange to some people that some have even speculated they were UFOs. Bioluminescence. Put simply, bioluminescence is the ability of a living organism to produce and emit light, and for a long time scientists were confused as to why this phenomenon existed. At first, this trait was only thought to be possessed by fish who live in deep, dark parts of the ocean. However, bioluminescence can also be found in various other living organisms, including certain aquatic plants and algae.
Further studies of bioluminescence revealed that the phenomenon is caused by dinoflagellates, which are single-celled organisms that produce light. Aquatic animals that contain these organisms are able to light up. They often use this ability as a defense mechanism to scare away predators or to attract a mate. Plants also use bioluminescence to their advantage. Certain plankton will light up if they're touched. Much like with bioluminescent animals, this is a defense mechanism. It's probably hoping that you'll go away. Shortly after the discovery of bioluminescence, people were afraid of it, understandably so. In Puerto Rico, there's a place called Mosquito Bay, which has a natural supply of algae that contains dinoflagellates. The frightened residents tried to get rid of the algae, but instead they made the area full of it. Whoops! The algae continues to thrive, and at night, a large portion of the bay glows in a pretty shade of blue. Has anyone been there? Let me know in the comments below. Christmas Island red crabs. Christmas Island is located in the Indian Ocean and features one of the world's most unique annual crab migrations. The island's red crab population usually lives in the forest, but every year at the beginning of the wet season, which is usually during October or November, they travel en masse to the beach, where they mate and lay eggs. Males arrive first and dig burrows. After mating with female crabs, the males immediately return to the forest. Females remain on the beach for another 2 weeks, incubating their eggs. Finally, they release the eggs into the ocean and travel back to the forest to rejoin the male population. After hatching, crab larvae spend between 3 and 4 weeks in the ocean before returning to the land as juveniles. The most fascinating part of this synchronized migration is reflected in the sheer 50 to 40 million crabs that participate in it simultaneously. To accommodate the flow of traveling crabs, Christmas Island will shut down certain parts of the road to protect them on their journey. While waiting for crabs to cross the road might seem annoying, people travel from all over the world to witness this amazing phenomenon. Would you? Light pillars. Light pillars are an optical phenomenon caused when flat hexagonal ice crystals refract lights. These lights tend to take on the color of the light source and are usually produced by street lights. However, any light source under the right conditions can create a light pillar. So what exactly are those conditions? To create light pillars, you need ice crystals. For these crystals to form, temperatures must be below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. In most light pillar cases, temperatures are -10, 20, or lower. There also must be no wind, and the crystals need to be near the ground. Oftentimes, this means high pressure without a storm present. In fact, a storm system can disrupt pillar formation. In January 2017, in Ontario, Canada, residents were treated to the gorgeous sight of dozens of vertical shafts of blue, white, and orange lights hanging in the sky. The lights were even seen by residents in neighboring towns. At the time, temperatures were -18 degrees Celsius or -0.4 degrees Fahrenheit. The lights hung in the sky for at least 45 minutes before fading away. The Spotted Lake. Canada is home to a fascinating lake that looks like any other body of water for most of the year, but during the summer, everything changes. The appropriately named Spotted Lake, which is also nicknamed Canada's most magical lake, is located northwest of Osoyoos in British Columbia's Okanagan Valley. As summer approaches and the weather warms, some of the lake's water evaporates, and hundreds of briny pools that are yellow, blue, and green in color are left behind. These pools are made of high concentrations of minerals that have run off from surrounding hills and collected in the water, such as calcium, sodium sulfates, and magnesium sulfate. Fun fact, minerals from the lake were used to manufacture ammunition during World War I. For centuries, Spotted Lake has been considered a sacred place by the indigenous people of the Okanagan Nation, who believed that different pools had different medicinal and healing properties. The land surrounding the lake was privately owned for many years. In 2001, however, it was acquired for the use of the Okanagan Nation and remains protected from development. Frost flowers. Ice is typically a mere cold substance that can be annoying if you slip on it, save for its occasional useful purposes for things like ice cubes and skating rinks. Especially creative people may see more potential in ice than the average person and create beautiful sculptures and even buildings out of large blocks. But you may be surprised to know that nature makes flowers out of ice. These amazing creations are called frost flowers and have petals that are woven out of ice. How does something like this happen? Well, it's very rare and requires precise conditions. Water in plant stems and sometimes wood will freeze. If the ice is thin enough, it gets pushed out of the stem or wood. The ice expands within the stem or the wood, and slowly but surely the petals begin to form. The stem, acting out of natural instinct, will continue to summon water from the ground, which rises up, freezes, and continues helping to make the petals. Aurora Borealis. The northern lights are one of the most well-known phenomena on Earth. It's on many people's list of places to go before you die because of its sheer beauty and mystery. This extraordinary light show occurs when the sun releases electrically charged particles, which collide with gases like oxygen and nitrogen when they enter the Earth's atmosphere. These lights are visible around the northern and southern hemisphere's magnetic poles, in other words, near the very top and very bottom of the planet. In the northern hemisphere, these lights are called the Aurora Borealis, and in the southern hemisphere, they're referred to as the Aurora Australis. From space, both auroras appear as an irregular oval ring centered over either magnetic pole. In most cases, according to scientists, the northern and southern auroras appear simultaneously and are mirror-like images of one another with similar shapes and colors. Green is the most common color of an aurora, but they can be seen in several other colors, including red, yellow, green, blue, and violet. Auroras take on various forms, including randomly appearing spots of light, shooting rays that light up the sky, and streamers, arcs, and rippling curtains. Have you ever been lucky enough to witness either of the auroras firsthand? Let me know in the comments below. Volcanic lightning. Active volcanoes are one of the most dangerous natural phenomena on Earth. Throughout the world, there are islands, cities, and regions that are constantly on edge because of a nearby active volcano. As if an active volcano weren't dangerous enough on its own, lightning can occur as a byproduct of an eruption. It forms within the cylinder column of volcanic ash, known as the plume, as fragmented particles of ash collide, producing static electricity. Volcanoes that do not have thick plumes are less likely to produce lightning. For example, in Hawaii, most volcanoes eject lava fluid rather than thick ash plumes, and therefore rarely result in volcanic lightning. During the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD, Pliny the Elder observed volcanic lightning. His account was the first written record of witnessing the phenomenon. Over the last 200 years, volcanic lightning has been witnessed during some 200 eruptions. Thanks for watching! What did you think of these rare and incredible phenomena that happen on Earth? Have you ever seen any of them before? Do you want to see any? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!